Motion been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. 2, approval of the minutes from the May 15, 2017 Traffic, Bicycle, and Pedestrian Commission meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion been made, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Initial request, number 3. Consideration with possible action on the request by Alderman Nennick on behalf of TNT Cross to establish a mid-block crosswalk crossing Morrill Street between Elizabeth Street and Henry Street to improve the safety of their workers as they walk from their parking lot to the employees' building entrance.
Okay. As you see on the displays, an aerial image of the plant itself. They have multiple plants in the city, but this is the one at Elizabeth and Morrow Streets. There's actually 2 requests, number 3 and number 4, but they are distinctly different. But you see both of them, at least the locations on this map. Item 3 is one under consideration right now for a mid-block crossing. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see. So, as you can tell, this parking lot is a larger size parking lot. There's 2 drive access points, one by the push pin, one over here to the left. It's actually fenced off as well, so there's really only the locations you can enter or exit are right at those driveway points. And right across the street is actually where I believe the employee entrance is somewhere up in this area. So the request came in. I had actually spoken to a gentleman by the name of Ron Granatelli and one other gentleman who had made the request, and I had referred them to Alderman Mendig to make the official request. What I know at this point in time is that, and actually you can really see it from the images here, that there's no sidewalk on that north side of Morrill Street at all. The proposed crossing is relatively close to an intersection, and intersections are where you typically find pedestrian crossings. And the proposed location of a crosswalk, again, by this push pin, doesn't really line up. I mean, it looks like it does on here, and maybe if I just zoom in, well, I'll let you look at it from an aerial perspective. You see this area here, this is all kind of a red stone gravel, and then over here is where the driveway is. And let me just show you what it looks like from the street view. So here's the fence I was describing. So you have a wider concrete driveway apron here and also just down the road. And this is the location on the other side. So you have, again, another wide concrete driveway, and then this area here, as you can tell, looks like it might be a little break area, sitting area for employees. So this is a location that they were requesting in, like I said, one of the, I think, challenges to this site for a mid-block crossing, if it were even warranted, would be just the configuration of the driveways, the fencing in order to get ADA-style curb ramps at this location, and as well over here. You know, they do have the advantage of having, I guess, a sidewalk that butts up right against the building, but then you'd have to have a curb ramp constructed over here as well. Not necessarily knowledgeable of what the activity is. It does sound like they have shift work there. They would give me some numbers of the number of employees that are parking there, which would indicate the number of people crossing and those times. But really, until we know any sort of information like that, it's difficult for me to say for sure that the amount of pedestrian activity would lend to consideration for a mid-block crossing. Again, as I had stated earlier, the proximity to an intersection somewhat concerns me, especially since that's an all-way stop and there are gaps naturally created by an all-way stop. Lastly, the amount of traffic that's present on this street really isn't that much. There's other locations, as a matter of fact, I think there's another agenda item relative to Green Bay packaging on the agenda, where you're really kind of looking at 2 different volumes of streets here. Where this one has roughly 2,500 vehicles per day. So with that said, I don't really have a recommendation at this time, but the anecdotal information that I have at this point in time is leading me to say I'm not really sure if this is an appropriate location for a mid-block crossing.
I would agree, but I got one question for you. If it were to be approved, who would pay for the cost of installing all the ADA and pavement markings and other signage and us or
Well,
TNT?
any of the improvements within the street right away typically is borne by the city. But in the discussions with them, it sounded like they were open to discussion on contributing to costs for such appurtenances to be constructed. But again, there's no definitive answer other than usually that cost falls on the municipalities.
Yeah, because to bring it up to standards, it could be kind of costly.
Right. And the thing is too, is that if we would do this per city standards, we'd want to see sidewalk on both sides, at least have some sort of connectivities to some other walking paths. And again, like I started off, we don't have a sidewalk on the north side.
That was my question. Can you go a crosswalk driveway to driveway? That seems to be what they're doing. Or do you have to have a sidewalk?
Right. In order to establish an official crosswalk, we would have to have ADA-style curb ramps in order to accommodate the disabled. So that would mean potential reconfiguration of the driveway apron and constructing next to it. In this case, it would look like it would have to be slightly to the west, the ADA-style curb ramps, and then ultimately crosswalk markings and signs.
Yeah, you don't want to lead a crosswalk to a driveway for ADA purposes,
Okay.
because the blind person doesn't know they're in the driveway.
Plus, there's no detectable warning fields either.
Can we move on?
Yeah, Alderman,
Just a couple of things that I did meet with the plant manager, Rob Granatelli, as well as their safety manager on this at their request. And in the past, they do have a lot of employees, and they're on 24/6, so 24 hours a day for 6 days a week, generally. And they do, just about all of their employees have to cross Morrow to get to the parking lot on the other side. Their safety manager and their plant manager are interested in finding a safer way to do it because people have been crossing all over. And they had a situation where some of the employees were exiting on one side of the plant and some are on the other. And they've consolidated that now so that everybody exits on this side. They are willing to make whatever improvements would be necessary. They talk themselves about paving this area where that bench is, that gravel area, so that they could plow that in the winter and, kind of show their employees that that's the way that they would cross. I think in terms of, they are making improvements to the plant right now and are looking to make other improvements on the site. So I think they're just looking for whatever direction we can give them. But the way that it's laid out, and with all the employees exiting on the east side of the building, and that being right across the street from the parking lot, they don't think it's very likely that they get all of their employees to walk all the way down to the corner and cross there. So that's why they were proposing this, and really whatever we think is appropriate to make it safer, I think would be acceptable.
Dave, have there been any close calls or any accidents, or are they just thinking there could be?
I don't know of any close accidents. There is a lot of semi-traffic that goes down Morrow, and some vehicular traffic, but I don't think it's tremendous.
Right, yeah. Just reiteration on the traffic volume, 2,500 vehicles per day. That's what I found in the DOT database. Correct on the trucks. I mean, this is predominantly an industrial area, so the percentage of trucks will be higher. Relative to your question about crash history, I did do a search on that night, I came up empty-handed, there's nothing in this area. I mean, there's some accidents at the intersection, or at the stop. But as, I wanted to look at those as well, just in case something was miscoded and perhaps was maybe at this area of question. But no accidents at this location, and at the four-way stop, I found no pedestrian-related crashes. So there's no history of that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Well, like one example, Wisconsin Ave in Appleton, across from Appleton Papers, they got a mid-block crossing, and it's right off like that, and you had to put up a hawk signal and everything else, and there was somebody hit there a few years back. So mid-block crossings aren't the most desirable, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Right, and, yeah, I remember that location as well, and I think your amount of traffic on a road
It's
like
higher.
that was significantly higher. They also had a history of pedestrian crashes at that location that was warranting additional accommodations, you know, and at this situation, at least the way it is right now, we don't. One thing I was thinking about too, and I guess I was looking at this image here, and this kind of prompted my curiosity, is you can see it looks to me like we have someone trying to cross right here even. So he's already in the street going this way. Now, Alder, you had mentioned that they had reconfigured the access. I thought that's what I had heard as well when I had spoken with them, but do you know if they still have maybe multiple access points for the employees? Because what I would be concerned about is that if you build it, maybe they won't all come, and you're still going to get activity like this, and they're going to be walking around there. The other thing that proves to me that they had some significant other access points of significant use is this sidewalk that's along their building. This looks like it's brand new, and this is dated September of 2016. You can continue on over here, and you can see how new that is. That's brand new concrete sidewalk. I have no idea if it's a reconstruction or not, but I don't think that would be there and on their property unless it was servicing some access point.
Well, they put that in to have a clean area up against the property more than for pedestrians as such, but they have made a lot of improvements to their plant, and all of they do make all of the employees come out on that east side, and that's their intent to continue that. You know, I don't think this is based on any accidents that occurred, but it's based on, you know, their desire to be proactive and try to, you know, have an area for so that their employees know where they're supposed to cross, and you know, have it clearly open, a path clearly open for them on both sides of the road, so that it's, you know, that's where. And they intend to train their employees too, that, you know, when you cross the road, that's where you cross. So, it's probably better than what you have right now, where people are just crossing haphazardly whenever they want to.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead.
It seems to me that we already have a de facto crossing there. That's where the employees are crossing the street. And it seems to me that the company came in and said, well, is there any way for us to make this safer and mark it? So in fact, it is a legal crossing instead of simply a de facto crossing, if
That's
you
what
will.
they're asking.
I'm kind of leaning, Mr. Chairman, toward asking the engineer to contact the company and see if there's some sort of compromise that we could come up with that would meet the ADA requirements, and then come back to us and we can take a look at it.
I don't think I can refer it to staff, and Dave, you can work
I
with them on
prefer
what
that.
would need to be done for it to be compliant. Would agree with you. Someone, did I hear a motion for that?
I'll make that motion.
One second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. 4, consideration with possible action on the request by Alderman Nenick on behalf of TNT Trust to establish a no parking zone on the east side of Elizabeth Street on both sides of their north driveway.
Okay, and Bruce, Resuming the map here to the other location, so this would be on Elizabeth Street, this access point. This is the northernmost driveway that they have. It's between Cedar and Elm Streets, accessing the east side of Elizabeth Street. So as you can tell from this aerial image, it's a wider access point. It is used by trucks. Their concern that they expressed to me was that the trucks were having a difficult time maneuvering in and out of the driveway due to the presence of vehicles close to the driveway. On site visit, I did confirm I saw the tire track marks, the tracking marks, and they did look like they would have encroached on a vehicle that could have been parked, say even within the 4-foot tolerance of parking legally up to a driveway. So the evidence was there that I saw that they probably do need the extra room for that. And with that said, I make a recommendation to establish a no parking zone between signs, roughly 1 car length on each side of that driveway.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. 5, consideration with possible action on the request by Alderman Moore to study pedestrian safety issues at Green Bay Packaging on Radisson Street.
This is the other location I made a generic reference to during the discussion on item 3. So again, another plant, again, another parking lot across the street, not at an intersection, but rather at a mid-block location. This is a location that we've had some familiarity with because this is one that was evaluated by staff last year, and Public Works staff and Green Bay Packaging staff worked together to establish this mid-block crosswalk that you see actually in the aerial image. It was one that, based off the information they gave us and our observations, that this was a good location. It's far enough away from an intersection, a free-flow intersection as well, so that the gaps weren't as much. The traffic was significantly higher here than in the last location, with the signal just being directly east of this location. So the mid-block crosswalk, in our opinion, was something that would be an advantage to this location. Up to this point, we understand it's functioning just fine. Now, the request had come in, and they had place called me, and it was no different than what I did with the last request. I said, contact your alder, in this case Alderman Joe Moore, relative to the request for this. You may recall, I believe it was at the March meeting that we had, we have a similar request, and actually a study that's in the hopper right now for Georgia Pacific over on South Broadway, where they have, again, parking lot crossing over to the plant. That one's on hold at this point in time, only for the primary reason of Ashland Avenue is under construction, and they have all this detour traffic that's on there, not giving it a representative snapshot of really the activity there. But this location is from what I understand, is operating as it should with normal traffic. Our RFB is really what they're asking for, a rectangular rapid flashing beacon. That is actually not an experimental, but it's an interim approval traffic control device by the Federal Highway Administration, meaning that you just can't put them in anywhere. You have to get approval to put them in, and the city of Green Bay actually has a blanket approval contingent upon we submit the locations to the Federal Highway Administration. So that being said, I think this location requires a study in order to say, do we have enough pedestrian traffic, do we have enough gaps in traffic, traffic counts, trucks, etc., to warrant the installation of an RRFB. Just kind of outside of this discussion, I would say I see a lot of tendency to want to put these in. I think they're kind of, I don't want to say kind of a fashion or it's a popular item kind of thing, so I just don't want there to be any sort of sense of false security here, that you put this in and all of a sudden it solves any of their concerns at this point in time. An RRFB simply would be a button-activated flasher, and the signs actually wouldn't change in appearance normally, only when that button is pressed, and then around the perimeter of that sign, the LEDs would actually light up at roughly about 1 flash per second. So with that said, it's a warning device. When it was initially proposed to the Federal Highway Administration, had some favorable test results. So I think compliance could be improved, but if compliance is really a non-issue at this point in time, why would we put one in? So I think it really does warrant some sort of study in order to determine whether or not it's needed.
We hear from Alderman Moore.
Whenever you, yes?
Sure, yeah. I think, as you guys know probably better than most, in Green Bay, traffic doesn't stop for pedestrians. I think across most of the country and world, they do. And, what you end up having happen, I'll kind of show you on the screen here, is this is a truck route. After I got the call, I started driving this every day. So I take it every morning between about 7:50 and 10 after 8. I take it. I'm past the initial rush of pedestrians crossing from the lot. And there are key times of the day too, that 7:30 to 8 o'clock in the morning, and then 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So there's certain times of the day when it's used quite a bit more. But what ends up happening, and what I've witnessed, is that some trucks will come up and stop at the crosswalk, and they'll stop if there's a pedestrian there. Some trucks don't, they zip through. A lot of traffic zips through. But when they do stop, there's been cars that have been behind me that then go and pass everybody. And so they come through. So if someone's crossing in front of that truck, and someone comes out here, they're not going to see a pedestrian step out, from in front. And that's, I think, what is probably the major concern, that we're seeing over there. There's no real way to curb it. The crosswalk is marked really well, neon green pedestrian signs. It's very, very clearly a designated crosswalk. It's a compliance of people that are following the law, not following the law, and, aggressive drivers. So, if it's a matter of having more enforcement certain times of the day with an officer sitting there, but I just don't want to see somebody get hit, and there have been close calls. So that's why the whole thing has kind of come forward here. So I kind of leave it in your hands about what can be done about that, but that's why I wanted to bring it in.
Okay, thank you.
A question for Dave. Are the signs facing both ways on both sides, or just, the near right side it faces traffic and the far right, left side it faces the other direction?
Right now it's a near right only installation with a down arrow. So one in each direction.
So if somebody stops and they pull out, there's not a sign for them if it's blocked by the other vehicle?
Correct. Yeah, it's not a doubled up type situation. If an RRFB were installed, that is actually part of the requirements of installing an RRFB, is having them doubled up, signs doubled up.
I'll make a motion to refer to staff for
Okay.
study.
Is the request just for the warning blinking lights, Dave, or is there more to it?
It was, when I had talked with them, that was their request.
Okay.
They just came right out of the gates. What would it take to get flashing lights there?
You
That's
got
what they
issues, I
asked
thought
me.
maybe it was more than one.
But obviously, the core of that is their concern of pedestrian safety. So
Okay.
that's why the request was written as such.
All right, yes.
So what do you think about some enforcement there?
You've heard me use the phrase halo effect before. If I park a squad there, everybody will do what they're supposed to do. As soon as that squad leaves, back to business as usual. And I hate to say it, but that's human nature, and I kind of have to agree with the alder with, though I may not agree the rest of the world drives the way they should, they definitely don't agree in Bay most of the time.
Right, yeah. I think we're coming around. I see people stopping an awful lot more now than they used to. but-
I think
You're-
Frogger has helped.
Unfortunately, that didn't get funded this year, so.
I know.
That's, the state put most of their money into seatbelts enforcement this year. So that's the purpose for it, not that we're receiving less money, we just have to use it for
For something else.
different purposes where they see more of a problem. That's something that, as we get funding for programs like that, Operation Founder, that has been used enough where I think it's pretty much memorialized itself in stone over at the police department. I know my replacement will pick up on that and run with it when he's got financing for it, so.
Chuck, you got a motion then?
Yeah, I made a motion to
Okay.
refer to staff for study,
All right.
to study the pedestrian safety issues.
All right, motion made, seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
6, consideration with possible action on the request by Alderman Weary to create a no parking here to corner zone on Gross Avenue, north of the 9th Street and Gross Avenue intersection, with the traffic engineer determining the appropriate distance.
Referring to the on-screen map, this is the intersection where the push pin is located. This actually is a school crossing during the school year, and as you can tell, we actually have an upgraded crossing here as well. But that's not the concern of pedestrians or anything, it's more or less how tight this building is to the intersection. So looking even a little bit closer here, let's just take a look at the west side. That's kind of the easiest one. Hard to tell from this actually, but this little shiny object there is a fire hydrant. So nobody can park within 10 feet of a fire hydrant by code. This opening here of concrete is a very large or wide opening commercial driveway for this corner lot. So as you can tell, we really have kind of a de facto no parking here at the corner of about 90 feet. Moving to the other side, there actually is a no parking here at the corner sign. So there you go. So we actually have, in essence, what the Alder's looking for. I did speak with Alder Weary today relative to this item and explained to him what I just explained to you. And he is fine with receiving and placing on file this request, as that's my recommendation.
Okay,
So moved.
Second.
motion made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. 7, consideration with possible action on a request by Alderman Weary on behalf of residents to establish a 2-hour, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. school days parking zone on both sides of Spence Street from a point 350 feet south of Tilken Street to Tilken Street.
And direct your attention to the on-screen display. The push pin is actually located at the north end of the request area. I did that intentionally because all of these streets intersect at Tilkens, and there's actually a walk here over to Ridge and over to Mason Street, the signal crossing over to, you guessed, Notre Dame Academy.
Again?
So as we see, this is one of those cause and effect type of
We did it over here.
parking situations that we have going on here. So as a little bit of history, Spence Street in the actual area under consideration tonight had this exact same zone a number of years ago. But as things changed, the zone started changing. The residents said, hey, we want to get a little bit more freedom back on our parking situation. They did that, but again, cause effect. We had all that parking change over on Ernst in that area west of Fisk Street, and we knew it would just push the problem to other streets. Now they're parking over on this side, and Spence Street is starting to get parked up. Towards the end of the year, it didn't surprise me because that's when you started to get more and more of these students, these sophomores that are getting their driver's permits, and the problem just seems to get worse. So that being said, I can completely understand where the residents are coming from on this one. And the school is just gonna have to figure out what they're gonna do with this problem. They know, they said that they've agreed to continue studying other locations for building a parking lot and other expansion items. So that being said, I see no reason to approve or make a recommendation to approve the request.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and second.
The other contingency I would put on that is that we don't install signs until up to, what would it be, end of August, I think, Notre Dame.
Mid-August.
Because if we do the 90-day
90-day period's
trial
gonna
now,
bite you.
we're not gonna get enough time to evaluate it.
Right.
So I would say put it in, but at a delayed installation for the beginning of school, and that way the 90-day trial period terminates at the right time.
I would add that to the motion, delayed installation.
Say mid-August, because I think it starts like about the 21st or 22nd. or
Right,
something.
yeah, they're usually about the third week.
Yeah, so-
So we had a motion for the trial.
You're right, with that addition on it.
Okay.
District school on the 20th.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. 8, consideration with possible action on a request by Green Bay Area Public School District and the Green Bay Police Department to enter into an agreement allowing trained Green Bay Area Public School District staff to assume the role of adult crossing guards under certain conditions.
Okay, Barb, you had asked about, if you don't mind, Chuck, just, it's actually just one in the file for you.
I got one.
You got your, yeah, and that was emailed out earlier today. And I do apologize on the tardiness of that, but it did take some time to get the agreement together, and it really wasn't, I guess, really all parties agreed upon it until, not until earlier today, I believe, when we all did. But nonetheless, what you have there is the proposed agreement. I'm just going to give you a very brief summary, and then I'd recommend handing it over the discussion to the district and to the police department. But as you know, over many years, there's been requests to place crossing guards at particular intersections and locations that after we make the study, they don't meet the warrants. I'm just going to call those secondary intersections. So the district has actually offered their staff to assist at secondary intersections at no cost to the city, with the stipulation that the city would train those teachers on how to cross students. There would be no charges to how adult crossing guards are approved at the non-secondary locations. So the request for new crossing guards will still take place as they had in the past for primary intersections. There would be an allowance for trained district staff to function as crossing guards at secondary intersections as approved by the traffic engineer. So that would be probably the primary difference, is that rather than having to come all the time to the traffic commission, or traffic bicycle pedestrian commission, for approval of the secondary intersections, since they are more minor in nature, and the amount of time that would be spent by district staff at those locations would be significantly less time. Typically, you have the 15-minute peak after school, that sort of time frame. That's really what the intention is of this, and then they would run those locations by me, and I would say yes or no. If they did disagree, there would be a process to resolve that. So with that being said, city, Public Works, Green Bay Police Department, and the district have come to this agreement that's in front of you, and at this time, I think it would be good to have both the police department and the district weigh in, or at least give their perspective on the agreement.
Carl, you want to go first?
Sure. Basically, the way this came about, Chris Collar, who's sitting in the gallery here, approached my crossing guard administrator in the spring and had asked about possibility of using teachers to do crossing in primarily areas adjacent to certain schools. A number of these areas that we're talking about are areas that we've had requests for permanent city guards, and warrant studies have been done, and for whatever reason, these areas did not meet the warrants. Now, with the school district offering up their employees, the issue that I ran into is one of proper training, so that they're doing things the same way that the city guards are. And then number two is going to be a financial liability or responsibility for those employees. The city is willing to train the school district employees, but any liability for their actions would have had to have rested upon the school district. That's a big reason that what you're looking at, I think there's like 8 or 10 page agreement here for something so simple. There's a lot of work that went into this. But at any rate, the agreement that's been come up with, that you've got copies of, basically is going to allow the school personnel to be trained by the city in order to act in a role as a secondary intersection type of a crossing guard. They've said these are projected as being shorter in duration during the day than where we normally have guards out for anywhere from, I believe, about 45 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on where they're assigned. These guards will probably be out there 15 to 30 minutes. They'd probably be gone after that time, unless there's something special going on where the school needs them. The liability rests upon the school district for their actions. The city is going to pick up the training. I believe, and I'm going off of memory here, Chris, you guys are covering any equipment needs off of
Correct.
your end? Okay, thank you. But it's a win-win, because the school district wants to protect, we want to protect the students, and we're able to put out additional crossing guards in areas where we mutually find a need, but we can't come up with a justification for it under the current warrant setup. So we're able to increase the number of guards at no cost to the city, and they will be city trained. They'll be operating in effect under the same rules that our crossing guards are. Should we find a problem with any particular employee, there is a mechanism in the agreement where that employee can be removed from that responsibility and would be replaced. So, did I cover everything?
I think so, yeah.
That's just from the last meeting, remembering what we're talking about. So, I guess if you two would like to address it.
Need to suspend the rules.
Motion
Okay.
to.
One second. Motion to suspend the rules.
I'll make a motion to suspend rules.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor? Motion carries. Hi, if you want to just come up, you can both speak, or just your name and address, and that's all we need for the record.
My name and address?
Yeah.
You want the school's address?
What do you need, Dave?
Schools is fine.
Okay.
My name's Chris Collar. The public school district address is 200 South Broadway.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say thank you to not only the commission, but the police department and the traffic engineer for willing to listen to the conversation that I've had with them. And working with the lieutenant and with Ken Brodhagen, the crossing guard supervisor, we've addressed several different areas throughout the city, trying to make sure that everything is safe with our students and our staff and our parents as they're coming to pick up the children and as they're walking to and from school. And we just feel that coming to this agreement will make it much easier for us to ensure that our staff are doing things correctly, legally, and safely, and help out where the city may not have the budget money to place crossing guards, or the studies don't warrant those. So we have put some time and effort into this, and I think in the end, in the long run, it's going to be a win-win for everyone. And partnering with the city is something that the district does quite often. So we appreciate that you're willing to, that the police department and the traffic engineer are willing to agree to this, and hopefully the commission will see it as a plus to the city and the school district as well.
I have a question, Chris. I imagine that parents and children will become accustomed to having these extra places to cross. So what is the plan for coverage if on a certain day a trained person that's supposed to be doing the crossing is not at school that day, is ill or something? Is there a...
So depending on the building,
Okay.
on the high school level, let's use East High School, they're going to have a designated paraprofessional that's going to act in those, perform those duties, and they'll have a backup person. If for whatever reason neither of those people are available, they will just basically act as a safety patrol. And they wouldn't be able to go out into the intersection and stop traffic, but they could help guide people across the road at the proper breaks in traffic and to move safely across the roadway, which is what we do at some of our locations now. We have safety patrols where the staff members along with students will help the kids and the parents make a good decision of when it's safe to cross. And basically at all those locations, if no one is there that's trained, they've been instructed that that's what they would have to do. They could still go out there with the vest on. They just cannot go into the road and use a traffic control device to stop vehicles. They can help people make good choices to get across the intersection.
Is this mainly for secondary?
It is mostly for secondary. We do have some, no. I'd say it's probably spread evenly more in the elementary level. We have a few secondary locations.
We hope Franklin.
Franklin is on the list, East is on the list, and Preble is on the list. Ultimately, it's going to be on the decision. Each building is going to have the choice whether they have the staff available to do it. So when we're meeting with them and we're identifying areas, we're working with those building administrators to, see what we can do as far as to get staffing trained in those locations. Some of the buildings have come forward asking for it, and I've gone and reached out to each of the other principals and explained the process that we were working on and how it will look when it's agreed upon, and then let them decide whether they want to have someone trained as a crossing guard, or if they're already using the safety patrol to continue with those efforts if they wanted to.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Alder, one of the things I'll just throw out to address here, we operate training as done by Ken Brodhagen, who's the crossing guard administrator, several times a year. It's pretty much on an as-needed basis. If we hire, 2 relief guards, and we know we're going to be running a class for those guards, it's about a 4-hour class. It's not real difficult, and we're dealing with educated individuals here, so we can run through the material in a 4-hour period. It's very easy for us to notify Chris and say, hey, we're going to be running a class. Do you have some people you want to slip through it when we're training our guards? Because it's the same material for our guards as what would be for school district employees.
Thank you. I was going to ask that question.
I knew you were going that way.
And some of the elementaries might have 5 or 6 staff members that are trained because they rotate their duties. So if that one person's missing, there could be several other people that could step in and do it as well.
One of the other things that we kind of anticipate is as the demographics of the community move around, you're going to see changes in foot traffic from these different schools. And it's one of the reasons why instead of every time we wanted to change one of these, bring it up to the traffic commission, is to make it an administrative function of the traffic engineer. He can go through the measures that he uses to determine, yes, this is a viable intersection for this, or no, it's not, and be able to give the reason why. And that becomes an administrative function that goes between engineering and the school district. So it can happen much faster than waiting 30 days for the next commission meeting.
Well, not only that, then we would have to get those locations approved by council too.
Right.
And that even adds more time.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move approval.
Some,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll make a motion to
Yeah.
close the floor and then.
or did you want to say something, ma'am?
No.
No, okay. All right,
I
just
drafted
make
the
sure.
agreement, so I'm just here in case. you
Okay,
guys-
all right. Looks like a good agreement, so nobody's quarrel.
Working
So-
with
Second.
Joanne here in the city.
All right, so let's entertain a motion, go back to the regular business.
I
Been
did.
made, seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, back to regular business, and then entertain a
Now.
motion for,
I'll move approval.
all right, move for approval.
I'll second it, but there's a typo in the one line.
Is that okay?
Yeah, provide, double word, so just on the
Yeah.
front
Oh, yeah, on the
page.
first.
I have a copy.
Whereas,
So,
Chuck had provided me the location of that, so I can get that to Joanne, the city attorney that had drafted this, as well as maybe with the fine tooth comb, maybe look for any others. A lot of that has to do with the track changes sometimes. 'Cause we did track all our changes, I had my comments, they had theirs, and so, yeah, everyone's in a different color. Sometimes I can see you turn that all off, and there you go.
Okay.
Something in there, I got a feeling that's all it was.
Okay, so motion's been made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
It's a good agreement.
9, consideration with possible action on request by Alderman Slavic to discuss measures to improve pedestrian safety for crossing Packland Drive at the intersection with Enisra Lane.
I've spoken with Alderman Slavic, actually on an email. He said he cannot attend tonight's meeting, and he asked if he had to be postponed to the next meeting.
I'll make a motion to postpone.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Termination of trial periods.
Yes,
Dave?
all of these are linked together, and I'm going to make an apology because there was actually supposed to be 5 of them, not 4 of them. But that happened to be because one of them ended up on the next page and was never caught, so that'll be on the next meeting
Okay.
agenda, so, these, all you're gonna see are the removals. This has to do with Elm Street, between Madison and Monroe. When Associated Bank had reconstructed their parking lot, and raised some buildings, there was a loading area for trucks that was also removed as part of that process. No longer needed, therefore we removed that zone, so, no, it really didn't surprise me that there would be no issues at all with these, so I do make a recommendation to move these forward, to be adopted by ordinance.
Move,
Okay, motion been made. Ordinance 10 through 13.
I need the motion.
Seconded Dan, okay, and seconded by Dan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Can I ask a process
Do
question?
you want to wait till we adjourn, or is it part of
Well,
the?
it's part of why an
Okay,
item didn't get on the agenda.
okay.
So would
Oh,
you
sure,
let me
go
wait?
ahead then. No, that's fine.
Okay, so just, I had put in an item at the council meeting.
You did.
Yeah, and is that, it just takes a while for it to get on?
No, that has to do everything with I wasn't here.
Okay. Okay.
So just, long story short, I had the agenda all prepared prior to my vacation.
Okay.
You happened to put that request in when I was on vacation, and when I got in on Monday, I looked at my stack of stuff, and it was sitting right in the middle of it, so.
Okay,
It'll certainly be on the August agenda, though.
okay.
Or July, sorry.
July, okay. Thank you.
Good.
I did lose some time, yes.
Did you?
Go back around.
Anything
the
else
other way.
from anybody? Nothing else? Okay.
Just
I'll
like
make a
Nothing else,
motion?
no.
Yeah.
motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second it. We're all in favor? We're adjourned. All right.
See you next month.
When is the,
Back to the, what's your July?
yeah, I don't,